We are continuing to track events out of British Columbia this morning, standing by for a police update at noon Eastern, 9 Pacific. Can tell you that the Governor-General of Canada, though, has put out a statement expressing her condolences of the victims of the attack at the Lapu Lapu Festival and expressing her gratitude to the first responders who rushed to the scene. Can also tell you at this hour that NDP leader Jagmeet Singh, balancing this last campaign day with this news, has decided to continue with one event in Penticton and is then cancelling all the rest of his events for the day, returning to Vancouver, but not doing any further campaign events. It sounds like Mr. Carney, the Liberal leader, will continue with his schedule, although all these campaigns will look different today because of these tragic events. But we will also now hear from the Conservative leader, Pierre Poilievre. He is in Mississauga. He made his way to a Filipino church this morning in order to offer condolences directly to people in the community. Here's some of what he had to say just moments ago.
Be here today with you in solidarity after the terrible attacks that we witnessed in British Columbia. I know many of you are shocked, heartbroken, and saddened by this senseless act of violence and by the innocent and treasured lives that have been lost. And Anna and I just wanted you all to know that our hearts are with you today. All Canadians are united in solidarity with the Filipino community. All Canadians are united with you in mourning the loss of these treasured lives and in binding our country together to support the surviving loved ones. I know that today will be a day of prayer and reflection for the Filipino community and for all Canadians. And I want you to know that all of our country is with you today as you mourn this terrible loss. And I thank you for welcoming us into your sanctuary today. And I hope that we can pray for those who've been lost and for those who survive in mourning their loved ones, their brothers, sisters, daughters, sons, mothers, fathers. All of them will have a deep hole in their hearts today. And we will try to fill it with the love of the entire country. Merci beaucoup de nous inclure aujourd'hui.
Okay, and those are the comments from the Conservative leader, Pierre Poilievre, in English, about the events that unfolded in Vancouver last night that party leaders are all having to react to and change a little bit how they are making their closing arguments and holding their last events of this last day of the election as voters, of course, prepare to go to the polls tomorrow. So who has the momentum into election day? How will these events over the past 24 hours affect this last day of campaigning? Let's bring in the Sunday Scrum on this election eve, all with me in studio in Toronto. Rob Russo, writer for The Economist, former CBC Parliamentary Bureau Chief, Robert Benzie, the Queen's Park Bureau Chief for the Toronto Star, and Kathleen Petty, the host of CBC's West of Centre podcast. I think you have another show too now.
I do, yes.
Yeah, you're one of those people that just keeps accumulating.
Kind of like you.
No, I just do the one. Good to see you all. Let's start with what happened in Vancouver. And I mean, election campaigns are often about events that sort of make their way into the campaign and how you respond. Obviously, everyone expressing condolences, but it's awfully hard on that last day when you're trying to build up a sense of excitement to have to then, deal with the reality of this kind of thing.
All campaigns have contingency plans for this sort of thing when traumatic events happen. Communications are often lined up in broad strokes. Yeah. Mechanics have things lined up. This is particular, though, because as you said, usually the final day is meant to convey energy and joy. Yeah. That has to be recalibrated now to take this into account. Substantial recalibration, as we've seen there for Mr. Poilievre. It'll be interesting to see how it affects Mr. Carney's campaign, because he was going to do a cross-country sprint today. Yeah. Several provinces, ending in Vancouver. We had two of the leaders in Vancouver just last night. One of them, Mr. Singh, actually attended the festival, as we know. So watch for security to change a little bit as well. Yeah. So recalibration, less joy, less of that kind of manic energy to take into account what is clearly a tragedy.
Yeah, Mr. Carney did cancel his first event in Hamilton this morning, and right now it's not clear on whether he's going to go to British Columbia. For that very reason, they are concerned about getting in the way a little bit as well. You have to make sure. But there are people who want to see the leaders on the last day. That's part of the problem here too, right?
Yeah, I mean, Rosie, this is, to Rob's point, this is a final sprint. I remember on the last day of the 2011 campaign, I was on the Harper plane covering that campaign. And that was the day that Osama bin Laden was killed by the Americans. And so that held up the campaign. We were in Abbotsford, British Columbia, and we were stuck there for many hours while Mr. Harper was getting the lay of the land from the White House and then speaking to this nation. Because remember, lots of Canadians died on 9/11. So it was a somber occasion. This is different because this is a domestic incident. Doesn't look like it's politically motivated, but we don't know. And it's a very upsetting thing. A huge Filipino-Canadian community across the country, so it's very upsetting.
Yeah, I was on that campaign too. I was with Jack Layton. I remember it really threw things for a curveball. Kathleen?
As much as you plan for contingencies, I don't think anyone is entirely prepared for something like this, what we've seen in Vancouver. So I take Rob's point, but somehow this seems to go even beyond anything that you could just recalibrate for. And when you take a look, obviously Jagmeet Singh is making the decision to really pull back, and everyone else is calibrating. I will be interested to see Mark Carney in Calgary and Edmonton. It sounds like that is continuing. And in the final hours of a campaign, the Prime Minister of the country, because he is Prime Minister, especially a Liberal Prime Minister, going to Calgary and Edmonton, you cannot help but note that and wonder, what that is about. And obviously, you don't want to be celebratory when you get there. At the same time, a big part of the reason why he's going there is to energize those campaign workers doing Get Out the Vote.
That's right.
And you need to still be able to sort of make that push, because I think he does have some expectations. We'll see how realistic they are on Monday to pick up some seats in both Calgary and Edmonton.
Yeah, I've never seen a Liberal leader go to Alberta in the last days of a campaign, and I sure haven't seen a Conservative leader do it either. Usually it's like, we've been there, we're not worried, let's move on.
In many ways it is the story of the campaign, isn't it? The Conservatives are drawing support from wellsprings that they've never tapped into before, younger people, for instance.
Younger men.
That's right. And the Liberals are tapping into older voters. We've seen an inversion in many, many ways. We've seen a polling inversion. We've seen an electorate inversion in a way. But you cannot help but remark that it shows who's playing offense and who's playing defense. One of Mr. Poilievre's last stop is going to be in Peterborough. He owns that seat. He's playing defense. Okay. So if Mr. Carney is going to Edmonton and Calgary among his last stops, he's playing offense.
Yeah. And what do we think about how Jagmeet Singh is handling these last days? It's some sort of interesting tactics and interesting moments. For instance, revealing that he had been a victim of death threats, a target of death threats, something that he had never wanted to confirm before, now doing it in these final days because he said the campaign thought he should talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, and we had talked about how we thought foreign interference would be an issue in this campaign. It hasn't been until Mr. Singh brought that up about the threats that he felt from the Modi government, allegedly. And his decision, I think, is interesting. I mean, but constituents of his could have died in that thing. So I understand the need for being somber. To Rob's point about the final days of the campaign, the final hours of the campaign, I'm struck that Per Poilievre is spending his last event in his own riding of Carleton, an Ottawa area riding that his campaign is very worried about. Liberals are on the offense there. Highest turnout, advanced turnout of any riding in the country. 43,000 people cast ballots last weekend.
It is the longest ballot initiative happening in that
this mischief protest campaign. But I think they're worried because they didn't think they had to be worried about it, and that's. And Mr. Poilievre's numbers in Ontario are not good. He's at least 10 points behind across this province, and it's going to be very, very hard for him to win tomorrow if he can't turn that around in the next 12 hours kind of thing. Yeah,
and even though the race is tightening, Mr. Poilievre's favorability is not. He continues to, all the polls suggest, he continues to be a problem for the party, which is so interesting given how popular he is inside the party.
Well, and especially in an election, I think we can all agree, although I would argue this has been going on for quite some time, but in this one in particular, this is an election about leadership.
Yeah.
And so who leads the party is such an essential part of sort of the brand and what you're selling and how you sort of build that momentum. And although the numbers we know have tightened, it is, I think, most people concede about leadership and who you want leading on what the big issues are. I don't think it's clear exactly what the ballot box question is for everyone.
No.
I do think there's two ballot box questions largely, and that's what people are voting on.
Yeah.
And clearly, you know, the polling also shows that on cost of living, he seems to have the edge in many polls, not all, but many. That too has tightened, by the way. And of course, the Trump and tariff issue, although it has receded somewhat, it made a reemergence in the past week.
Last word to you, Rob.
I'm struck by how both campaigns have used dread and they've used defiance. Dread of the Liberals in terms of Mr. Poilievre and what might come if another Liberal government is elected. Dread from Mr. Carney in terms of the looming shadow of Mr. Trump. Defiance, though, has been a hallmark of this campaign. Canadians have risen up as one in ways that I haven't seen in a long, long time, despite the vast divisions, new divisions, geography, generational that has broken out in this campaign. We are united in ways we haven't been in a long, long time as well.
Okay, I'm going to put you guys on ice for a little bit. You'll come back. Rob Russo, Kathleen Petty, Robert Benzie. Thank you. Canadians will have their say in terms of who forms the next government and the next prime minister. What is the path to victory for each party? Is it still attainable? Let's bring in our election panel to discuss. Mary Ng, a former Liberal cabinet minister. Jason Kenney, a former Conservative cabinet minister, former Premier of Alberta. Randall Garrison is a former NDP MP. Glad to see you all back. You have two titles, so that's you have to really perform in this panel.
My third
Jason
title is
Kenney.
Recovering Politician.
Oh, okay, good. That's probably your favorite one. And let's start with the Liberals, Mary Ng. What we see, well, we'll see how the day unfolds with events, obviously. But Mark Carney was intending now to make a sprint west. He was going to Calgary, he was going to Edmonton, and he was going to go to Vancouver. What should we read into that? That Liberals feel very confident if they're spending some of their time in Alberta? What should we take away from that?
Well, I think that volunteers and Liberals across the country have worked really, really hard over this campaign. And I know seeing the leader yesterday in the many whistle stops that he made here in Ontario, the mood very much is to encourage the volunteers to keep doing the work. And tomorrow is all about getting out the vote. So if we've spent the last number of weeks identifying who might be voting Liberal, then you want to make sure that you are thanking and that you're encouraging your volunteers to work right up until the polls close tomorrow. And that's why he's making those stops all across the country.
Yeah.
I have a slightly different take on this. I saw some commentary that, Mr. Poilievre was desperately running back to his riding on Sunday night. The truth is this. Campaign managers don't like the leaders who are coming to town in the last few days because their focus is on that last crunch in terms of voter identification, the GOTV work. And if Central Campaign calls you up and says, by the way, congratulations, the leader's coming and we're going to blow out all of your volunteer workers for a day, going to take several hours, lots of logistical hassle. If your focus is get out the vote, that doesn't necessarily, basically what the Central Campaign is trying to do is to paint a picture of momentum. What the local campaigns are trying to do is get out the vote. And those two things can be in tension.
Oh, so you think Mark Carney going to Alberta is a hindrance?
I think it's just the national campaign saying, let's paint a story of momentum. I don't think it moves the dial locally.
Well, then speak to me. I don't think Pierre Poilievre is going to lose a seat. I am not one of those who believes that. But it is curious to me that he's going there, and I don't know if that's...
No, it's very simply because he has to end in Ottawa, because on election night, he'll be voting
in Ottawa,
there. Ottawa's his home. It's election night, Ottawa. I don't think he's done a single event. So leaders typically do at least one event, and they very often end up in their riding. So it's entirely... They were going to do a bus trip, but quite sensibly, to cover key spots in the GTA and then Eastern Ontario. Where does that take them? Ottawa. So it's just where the schedule takes them.
Okay. Randall Garrison, we saw Jagmeet Singh. Now he's suspended the latter part of his campaign today, but obviously British Columbia is important to the NDP and perhaps a concern as well. And we are hearing things about Mr. Singh's own riding that I would give a little more weight to in terms of how things are unfolding.
Well, New Democrats always have a challenge being the third party. And so in the campaign, we get more equal time.
Yes.
And I think we saw Jagmeet do very well in the leaders' debates. And most of the pollsters reported a bump. And so what he's been trying to do is build on that bump and remind people that New Democrats delivered a lot in the last minority parliament. And they'd like to have an opportunity to deliver more. And so at the local level, I agree with Jason. I was a candidate 6 times. I never wanted the leader to come. Because
It's a huge distraction.
It's a huge distraction. But I will say in defense of leaders' campaigns, it does attract local attention.
Sure.
Generally.
You get at least a day of local
It's not great
coverage.
for your volunteers. It's not great for
Yeah.
pulling the vote, but you get some local coverage that's helpful.
You move in local media, you go from story 5 to maybe story 1 with your leader in town.
And I've talked to a couple of NDP candidates who were the same situation as me. I ran 6 times. 5 times people said I shouldn't be running in the riding and I could never win, and I won 4 of them. And so only the last time did the aggregators finally admit that I might win. And so I think what local candidates in the NDP are dealing with is this idea that somehow the NDP is going to be wiped out. I don't think that's the case because there's strong local candidates, strong local campaigns. Will we lose seats? I don't know the answer to that. And redistribution didn't treat us very well.
No, it's true.
A lot of seats, in particular Jagmeet's seat, are quite different than they were in the last parliament, even in more than just name. And so there's some big challenges to reach out to those voters and get them to the polls. But that's what the NDP is really good at.
Yeah.
And so I'm looking forward to some actual upsets in other ridings. I think if you look at Saskatoon West, you look at Tayakon, Parkdale High Park, very strong local candidates, very strong local campaigns. We may see some upsets.
Optimistic to the end.
Yeah. That's what NDPers are like that too, is I would conclude.
If you're not an optimist, you wouldn't run for the NDP.
Exactly.
Marianne, Mark Carney continues to make the case for a strong mandate. He's not asking for a majority because that would be foolish for a politician to do at this stage, but he's asking for a strong mandate. What should Canadians interpret that to mean, though? That Mr. Carney is ready to continue governing, that he believes he's going to be Prime Minister?
No, I think that the asking for a strong mandate is one show of unity in the country, so that it is the best tool he will have to fight Mr. Trump.
Sure.
Having a united Canada, unified against no 51st state, being strong as Canada, needing to do the hard work of building diversification, building our infrastructure, and making some hard choices about how to keep Canada strong in the future is what we're going to need. We're going to need a unified Canada to do that. And I think that's his message.
Canada is united, I would argue, against Donald Trump. So I read Mr. Carney's comments more as, don't give me a minority government where I'm not going to be able to move forward quickly with my plans.
I think that's just a reality as well, right? I mean, to have the confidence of a mandate from Canadians and a strong mandate means that he is able to have that voice from Canadians, giving him the authority to do the job. And I think that's what he's asking for.
Yeah, I think the challenge for Mr. Carney is that polling would suggest there are a number of voter groups who have not historically voted Liberal, including some Quebec nationalist bloc supporters and some lifetime New Democrats, some older voters who were historically conservatives.
Some progressive conservatives.
So his challenge is to lock those new softer voters for his coalition in.
Sure.
And the challenge for Mr. Poilievre is to remind people what they fundamentally are saying in this election is, yes, they want to be strong on Trump defending Canada, but they want change. And that, it's down to the last, 5 or to 8% of undecided voters. There can be a lot of very tight races. I know that's a cliche, but I think that's particularly true if you see the national numbers. Where that breaks down in the GTA Metro Belt, in the 40 key ridings that typically decide federal elections, very hard for Conservatives, with the NDP apparently going down into single digits, but still competitive. And I think they're going to have greater intensity. So you're going to see a bunch of very close races, and it'll be on a razor's edge with undecideds determining, is it about change or the Liberal message?
Yeah, the problem, though, as you know, Mr. Kenney, Jason Kenney, is that I'm used to him being a minister or a premier still, is that for some people, Mark Carney does embody change, right? Not for everyone. Some people don't buy it, but for some people, he does.
And the rabbit that the Liberal campaign's been trying to pull out of the hat is is exactly that, to say to at least a portion of the pro-change voters, this is change. I don't think that's very credible. Same team, the platform was a Trudeau platform. It's the same.
That's not true. It was a Carney platform. It was not written for Justin Trudeau. That is simply not true.
Listen, this is a matter of, is that an objective CBC fact-check statement? I think
Yes.
that's subjectively
Yes.
what I will say is...
You can say it subjectively, but objectively it is accurate to say that.
It reads to me like a Trudeau platform.
Well, that's fine. It can read that way to you, but that is not...
I don't know. I guess it reads to the CBC differently, but it reads to me like a Trudeau platform, which is got interventionist,
Yes.
more spending, implicitly higher taxes, not addressing the fundamental issues around productivity or competitiveness, the flight of capital, the flight of investment, the decline in per capita GDP. These are the underlying issues in affordability, and I'm just saying, I think there is a tension in what's left of a swing electorate around that.
That's fine. But what my point was, because there was a conservative talking point emerging that this platform had been written for Justin Trudeau. That is not true.
Well, it reads to me like it was.
You can read it that way, but it was not written for Mr. Trudeau. Mary Ann.
Absolutely, it was not written for Mr. Trudeau. In fact, it's Mr. Carney's handprints on that. And I think that when you have a leader who has managed crises, including that in 2008 when you were in government, and in the United Kingdom, you've got someone who's a leader who wants to roll up his sleeves, who wants to get the mandate from Canadians and do exactly that. Yeah. Build for productivity.
But Jason Kenney's points are valid. There are a lot of the same people around Mark Carney. There are some new people, but a lot of the people are the same.
Interesting. I mean, I was looking through the many new candidates that are running here, and they're going to work very hard to earn their seat. But having people like the person who is running my riding, Tim Hodgson, strong business credentials coming in, or having someone like Mr.
Mary, I have great respect for you and a lot of Liberal friends, but 3 months ago, you guys were telling Canada that the retail carbon tax was necessary to save the planet, that the capital gains tax increase was necessary for social equity in Canada. I mean, you guys have done so many flip-flops and so many issues. I think voters have a right to say, what the hell do you actually believe?
Well, I think that's the change that you're talking about.
3 months ago, you guys were saying Canada's broken. And so I think what we're seeing here is that on economic issues, a lot of people have said it's hard to tell the Conservative platform from the Liberal platform. And so what I hope people are thinking about is not just who can oppose Trump, but how can we get a parliament that will work on behalf of Canadians? Yeah. Now, if we've got a parliament with just right-wing Conservatives and everybody's favorite banker, we're not likely to get things that benefit ordinary people. And so that's the message the NDP's been trying to deliver in this last week, is you need some people there in this time of high prices, high costs, and high unemployment coming down the road, who will actually work to benefit ordinary Canadians.
Okay, Mary, we all cut you off there, so I'll let you.
So I would say this, tomorrow's election day. We have put out platforms. Our platform is costed. The Conservative platform needed a revision the day after it was put out. I would encourage Canadians, take a look, and this is such a consequential election, take a look at what we're all putting out there, and I think that the choice is, I think the choice is going to be one for a strong mandate, because Canadians need that for our economic future.
Totally agree. So for all the undecideds, go to the party websites and read their platforms tonight.
You're all recovering politicians, but you haven't recovered entirely, is what I would take from that last panel. Randall and Jason, you will be with me tomorrow night. Mary, you're going to stop by a little bit later in the evening too, so I look forward to that. Hopefully it'll be as robust a conversation tomorrow.
Indeed.
Thank you all.